Yeah, yeah, yeah. Monday morning got motivation and madness on my mind. I got the ENT, so kick your feet up, sit back and recline. Y'all is here with Souraya, so let me sit back and recline and let me see. I got the will until you spit and decide.
All righty. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Happy Monday morning. It is August 28th. You guys, it is almost September. Can you believe it? Wow, the year is coming to a close super fast. I don't know for those of you that are gonna catch this on YouTube, what is going on with my virtual background. As you can see, that our beautiful wheel is behind me that we normally spin every Monday, but it is flickering, and so I apologize for technical difficulties on today. And with that being said, we are actually not going to be spinning our famous wheel today to decide what topic we're going to talk about. We have a very special guest here with us today, and we are actually going to be discussing a predetermined topic for this particular episode. So I will have him pick a number, you guys. We won't skip that out, but we won't spin the wheel today. So with that being said, allow me to please introduce my special guest, Dr. James Harden. Please go ahead and tell our listeners a little bit about you and who you are, what you do.
Well, excited to be here. Hey, everybody. My name is Dr. James Harden. I live in Las Vegas, Nevada. My background of my career of choice is law enforcement. I've done so many things, ATF, DEA, done a lot of things, doing the right, serving my country as a United States Army veteran, as a military police officer. And over the last 20 years, I've been in Las Vegas, participating in a number of community concerns, underprivileged, underserved demographics, from seniors to domestic violence to ex offenders. There's just a host of things I do here in Las Vegas and around the country. And yeah, so I have a plethora of information and look forward to having a dialogue with Souraya today on this amazing but critically important topic.
I love it. Okay, so our topic today is kind of diving into one of the aspects that you focus heavily on, which is elder abuse and how mental health relates to that. And so this platform is all about mental health. It is all about self care. It is all about helping you guys learn how to prioritize your mental health and your self care. And so today we're going to focus on doing that with our elderly population. So those of you who do have elderly people in your family or people that you care for, you definitely want to tune in and share this with somebody else. With that being said, go ahead and like and subscribe and share this podcast on any platform that you find it available on. So with that being said, normally, Dr. Harden, we spin our wheel to decide what topic we're going to talk about. Super cool, super fun, but we're not going to do that today. But I am going to have you to pick a number because that is a part of the process typically as well. I have 13 questions lined up for you. So you are going to pick a number between 1 and 13 to determine which question we're going to start with.
All right, where's the drum roll? No drum roll. Da-da-da-da-da. There we go. I'm going to go with number nine.
Number 9, good choice, says,
I don't
are
win. I
there
don't win. Wait. I don't win nothing. I didn't get a prize. No, I'm
you
teasing. Go ahead.
won being on this podcast with
Hey,
me,
that's
your
what's up. That's
amazing
what's up.
host.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Number 9 says, are there any specific risk factors associated with mental health and elder abuse that investigators should be aware of?
Well, let me speak from experience and then the facts. Elderly abuse is real. If you're like me, I'm an Oreo, right? And most of us in my age group are Oreos. That means that on one side I have adult children that I take care of and grandchildren, and on the other side of me I have my mother who I care for in my
Mm,
home and take care
gotcha.
of her needs. So I sit in the middle, taking care of both, and I just call that the Oreo because without me, it would be a struggle for both sets
Right.
of my family, and many of you may be in that position as well. So when I say that, then this abuse for the elderly becomes a a very it's so serious that here in Las Vegas, I don't know about the city you may be in, but in Las Vegas, my friend, the sheriff here is Kevin Mayhill. They have a dedicated division for elderly abuse, not
Mm,
just physical, but the mental side of things. So it should be it should be known to an investigator the diagnosis or the health implication that our seniors are in. We're in a very dynamic sense of what they go through. I mean, from Alzheimer's to dementia to other capacities that are diminishing just because of their elderly status.
mhm.
But what's happening is that grandchildren and children and family members and caretakers are taking full advantage of this diminished capacity to
Mm,
maximize their finances, to
their
maximize their
gain.
property, to
Yeah.
maximize a lot of things that they just don't know. So what happens is by the time people find out, or an investigator gets involved, or maybe they pass and they're looking at their estate, whatever the case may be, they don't know that for years somebody's been siphoning, finances from them, and they just didn't know. They don't know the
Wow.
computer. They don't know the technology, so they would know. Now that's not the elderly or your grandparents or your parents' fault, but it is our due diligence that one, to your point, Soraya, that we get educated and we know some of the factors we need to check, and that means getting to know their doctors, getting involved in their appointments, whether they're with Medicaid or have their own insurance. Many of us, especially grandchildren, they see it as a extra, and I'm not saying they don't love their grandparents, but it's a lot, so when you're like for me, I'm the son of my mother, so I'm very involved. She's right here in the house with me, and I know, she got a meeting or she got an appointment, a doctor said that, because why? I want her to be healthy. But
Mhm.
in order to get back to that abuse, Soraya, because people don't check on it, some of these conditions get exploited.
Mm, that's really, really sad. You had me thinking about my own mom as you were speaking, who is getting up in age as well. And even though she's fully functioning, taking care of herself, she has a husband. And not that anything's wrong with him. So let me preface this by saying I don't believe there's anything going on, but I can imagine that there are situations where even the person's spouse may be taking advantage of them if
Yes.
one or the other is a little bit more incapacitated than the
Right.
other or
So
something like that.
if you allow me, just a really quick story. It's a sad story, but real. This is real life. It really happened, and it was a case that I was presented to by an older couple that went to one of the historic churches here in Vegas. And the gentleman was 80 years old, 82 years old actually. His wife of about 12 years. They got married late in life, just late love happens all the time. So they've been married for maybe 11, 12 years. Because it wasn't the mom's first marriage. This man, now they're married. They, got a house. Everything's going well. They're living on fixed income and everything like that. However, the daughters, she had two daughters who did not like this gentleman.
Mm,
So when she started to show signs of dementia, they began to feed into her some falsehoods of his behaviors. Now,
yeah,
and he didn't do anything wrong. He didn't know anything was going on. He's older, she's older, and now you got this beautiful couple being manipulated by these two daughters who wanted the mom's money. And to the
yeah,
point where by the time I got involved in the case and began to examine some of the documents that he had already been sent, they were trying to get him out the house, get the house and everything. They had already initialized through her the power of attorney to literally excommunicate him from the all of the stuff, and he was just at the end of the day, he was left, literally homeless. And because they'd already, got the paperwork, and there was no fight in him because he didn't know where to begin. And when I started to work with him,
yeah.
unfortunately, he ended up passing, and they got what they wanted. But the point I'm trying, the only reason I bring it up to your point, sometimes couples and other people get involved in some of this abuse, and I'm using the word abuse, Soraya, because it is.
It
People
is.
think, it's. I mean, everybody thinks abuse is just physical, but financial abuse. even to the point where there's emotional abuse. When you're looking at an elderly person who can't speak up for themselves or afraid to say something, and some of that abuse leads to neglect becomes abuse. If you don't get by and see about them, make sure they got something to eat. I really love. There's a program here in Las Vegas called Catholic Charities, and they have the program called Meals on
Meals
Wheels.
on Wheels. Yeah.
So you can actually sign your parent, grandparent up to make sure they get food that they can microwave and really good food that they give. I think they partner with a organization called Three Square. But again,
Hmm.
it's just good stuff to have in place to combat some of this abuse. Again, it's not always financial. Sometimes it's other abuse that shows up in different ways. So thank you for letting me share that story.
Absolutely. And I think that people who manipulate others in that fashion should have some sort of legal ramifications. I don't
And
know,
they
how
and they
often
and
that
they, they,
happens
they,
with
they
you.
do, and it's typical to any other case. As I've been in law enforcement, so I also do criminal, civil, other legal cases. However, the abuse side of it is tricky because you have to have a just like any other crime. There's a preponderance of evidence.
Yeah, you
So
burden of
but
proof.
to that one case I just shared with you, once the daughter's got the POA, power of attorney signed by their mom, now everything that she was, they gave them all the. So can you prove that they abused this man? You see what
Which
I'm
is
saying?
interesting because that was probably manipulation in the first place
Yeah,
of of the fact that she wasn't completely
mentally,
mentally
yeah,
sound enough to even have signed the power of attorney in the first place.
right,
So
and
that, but that's hard to prove as well. I get it. I've been in
right,
healthcare for 29 years, so
okay,
I understand, that side of it, and I've seen those sorts of things play out. So that's
and
crazy. Wow.
so for those that are listening, I think it's just encouraging to, if you have not been, there's no negative, but it's just healthy to stay involved to some degree. I had another case that was just another craziness. There's a case out of New Jersey, and the sisters, there's two sisters, and one was very aggressive, the other one was very passive. But they hated each other, so it was all about the money they can get from the mom. And now the
Mm.
mom, again, to her age, was showing signs of either Alzheimer's or dementia. I can't remember which one, but she just couldn't remember all the way. So the sister that didn't like the other sister, she pitted her against her. So now she can't call. She locked her away. Didn't let her use her phone. When the other daughter called, she'd say she's out. Just really taking it. I know it sounds like a movie, don't it? But it's
Right.
real life, and it
Yeah.
happens every day to our seniors.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that close knit family, then it's healthy to get the family together and show the love to them. I mean, don't wait till the funeral. Don't wait till the deathbed visit. No, do it now. I mean, this is the love that we can show in real time, as opposed to, or well, something happened to grandma or something happened to auntie. Let's and be proactive, and
Yeah.
that's showing love. I think at the end of the day, Soraya, when we can, I can go on all day with so many cases and sad stories, but at the end of the day, they all need love. The older they
Yeah.
get, I think one of the best scenarios or comparisons I heard was that an elderly person is just like a baby,
Mhm.
and they come in with the same way they came into the world is how they want to
How they
leave the world.
start going out. Yeah.
Yeah, but they need all of that care, all of that. I mean, it's funny. My
Yeah.
mom was funny. I wish my mom was on here with you, but she's so funny because I have one little sister, and she lived in Cali, and my mom had to have a knee replacement, or actually needs both knees replaced. And my mom is not a little tiny person, so she's a little thick woman, but she cool. And so when she did the surgery, we brought her home and everything. I had to outfit the house, so the wheelchair, and it's just a lot of stuff had to go down. But finally, she's in her room. We did all that, so she's able to get in the bed. And guess what I had to do? Oh
But
my gosh. I had to change her diaper. Oh my gosh. I was like, Mom,
yeah,
you want me to what? And I'm like, Mama, let me call. So, because she had some of the ladies from church come by. I said, let's wait to Sister So and so. No, I got to get. I said,
that's
Mama,
a
I don't
full
want to.
circle moment right there, huh? That's a
I was
full
like, Mama, I
circle
don't want
moment.
to do that. She's like, boy, I done seen everything about you. If you know, she said, modesty out the window. So I was
Yeah.
so happy when my sister came to stay with us. Oh, so no, no, but that's the kind of love that I think is necessary um, for all of our parents, all of our grandparents, and unfortunately, in our technology days, it's somehow seeping out more and more, and people are not as aware, or maybe don't want to be as aware. But I just encourage you guys, show them love and be involved. I think that's going to be one of the best ways to combat some of this abuse.
And in addition to love, I think respect goes a long way as well. I think a lot of times because they are kind of reverting to a more infantile state, that we tend to lose a level of respect and we start speaking to them
Mm,
any kind of way
mm,
and treating them any kind of way. And the reality is, we have to remember that they are still our elders. They still went through life, they still went through
yes,
a significant amount of life and had a significant amount of experience and still
mm,
have a significant amount of wisdom inside of them. And
yes,
so
yes,
we ought to, treat our elders with respect and love, And so I just wanted to put that out there because that's something also that I see in healthcare is like, you watch these family members and the way that they speak to their elderly family members, and it just baffles me as to why they're speaking to them, like a child, basically, with
yeah.
with zero respect. And
Hmm.
so I think
And
that's
and
important.
it- and it's yeah, unfortunately we deal with millennials, X generation, again being raised differently, not having the full um in engagement with their that generation. In other words, when I was growing up, there wasn't a lot of technology, so you went over to grandma's house, you sat
Hmm.
over there and ate. You
Same
didn't have
here.
to do the
Yeah.
texting, but now because there's such a distance, that respect kind of is again challenged. They don't have to be in face to face when they can call them or whatever. So I think it's incumbent upon us, the Oreos, those that remember, to continue to share that with our new generation. It is not just because they're not doing it or maybe they haven't been exposed doesn't mean it's impossible, and we don't give up. I'm unfortunately, I just use a. I remember one of the comedians said, we the punk parents. Sometimes we don't jump in and correct where we should to
Hmm.
respect the generation that has left a legacy and been the shoulders we're standing on now to experience what we're able to experience in our lives.
Yeah.
That's a very very strong and very valid point to bring up with respect. Thank you for
Yeah.
adding on. Yes.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and pick another number.
Oh, I get
We
another number? Do I
Yeah.
get to win something on this one?
We still have 1 through 13 minus number 9.
6.
Number 6 says, in cases of elder abuse involving mental health concerns, what are the challenges investigators typically face when collecting evidence or gathering information?
And we kind of touched on that when we were talking about those other two daughters. It's evidence. It's the paperwork. It's people keeping up with documentation. A lot of times, especially when it's dealing with health abuse, but especially financial abuse. These things, are getting better. But the challenges is can I use that information to build a case? So what people have done now, they've been able to implement video into their homes, which
Mhm.
helps a lot. The Ring doorbell, other things, especially when you have maybe an outside vendor or agency, serving your parents while you're at work or somebody sitting with them. That helps to protect them. The other thing is, one of the things they really have to be careful now because the technology is digital signatures. The DocuSign.
Mhm.
It's so easy to do that and claim that that person did it, but especially when you're dealing with seniors who are not familiar with the internet, they may just click on something and next thing you know, they didn't sign the whole house away. Like, who did that? I don't know. Well,
Mhm.
got your initials right there. And we know if you know technology, you don't need to physically be there to show your ID that you signed it. So,
Yeah.
does it stand up in court? Is it, those type of things. And then the other challenge is education. One of the things that I was able to do last year, and I'm hoping to be able to complete this year, is And there's another brother, Pastor Parsons, who get the senior community together, working with EOB. They have a senior citizen um, center to educate, to get them to not just educate. See, I think my approach is different than most. I can get a bunch of seniors in the room and it'd be great. Love y'all. But if I don't have the grandchildren in the room, if I don't have the other ones there to
Mhm.
take that information home and continue, then it's just good information that we got in a nice setting. So you really need to have someone from the family, someone from the generation who can translate and work with and shoulder some of that information, so that education continues and that senior really gets to be able to ask questions. And one of the things that's probably the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in the world is my mom is a doctor, Dr. Caldwell. She still teaches at 76 years old. She's still teaching,
Wow.
but you know what she teaches?
What?
Computer technology. She teaches
That's
seniors. She
awesome.
teaches seniors how to get on the web, how to check their emails, and I think that's her doctorate is in computer science. So she was at UNLV, and she retired, and now she does it on her own. But again, still teaching this technology to her demographic because they
Mhm.
are in need, and I think that's going to be something we continue to do, and I think that would help with, to your point, some of the evidence that we're able to maintain and use when these situations come about and we looking for some proof.
That's awesome. All right. That was a great answer. Okay, let's pick another number.
Three.
Number three says, are there specific mental health diagnoses or conditions that you're aware of in your experience that make elderly individuals more susceptible to abuse?
Yeah, and like I said, I brushed over a few, but again, dementia, Alzheimer's, surprisingly, but not talked about a lot, is diabetes. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Diabetes, although it's a blood condition, it does affect the mental capacity, depending on how high, how low the sugar is, and how they endure that episode. If, they have a high sugar or low sugar, that A1C3 is critical with diabetes for elderly, because again they begin to, and of course I know everybody's familiar with high blood pressure. That would also cause some. Now we're talking about mental capacity. Are they able to remember? Are they able to talk? Are they able to articulate? Are they able to retain information and repeat it? So these conditions I've seen, have an impact on that, and they may even, if not may not even be Alzheimer or dementia. They might just forget because they're getting older, and
Mm-hmm.
some of that has
Amen
to
to
do with
that.
diet, has to do with their eating. So we really want to be aware. I know there's some great supplements. Another thing that people recommend, and that's what the doctor says or whatever. But these are the conditions that I've seen have been very I'd say unfortunate when you're trying to prevent or prove abuse, because again these conditions have some of them been prevalent for a long time. The challenge, I think, the biggest challenge is the newer ones. That's why I think a lot of times we, as the children, the parents, the loved one, the neighbors, whoever, even at our church, maybe somebody at the church who doesn't have anybody, somebody steps in and asks the questions about their health and get some information so they can not only help them stay healthy, but be aware of things that could affect some manipulation later on down the line.
I think it was good for you to bring up some of the disabilities that we don't typically view as a disability, like diabetes. I think that, and ones that I've personally seen, in healthcare are the typical ones where, the elderly person is either blind or mute or physically unable to get up and walk on their own. Maybe they're confined to a wheelchair or something like that. And so those specific things also set them up to be more susceptible to abuse as well. Or they're bedridden. And so they have to rely on somebody to turn them and change them and feed them and do different things, for them. And
Right.
oftentimes they get neglected and abused because their quote unquote caregiver doesn't want to have that role. So
Right.
Thank
So
you for
that
bringing the other ones up.
well, I think it bears that I did forget this one that one of my dear friends, his name, and I just got to say his name. His name is LZ Martin. He was all of 69 years old. Passed just a couple of weeks ago.
I'm
Really good
sorry.
friend of mine. I would go visit him and his wife. Actually, some of the cases I got was because of him because he had so many senior friends who were needing assistance. But he passed from a stroke,
Mm-hmm.
and he had his second stroke, and he recovered from the first one. And so when you're talking about other conditions, strokes, because again, leaves them semi incapacitated with regards to how they are recovering. And to that point, I think we are more aware when they have a stroke, not because we want them to have another one, but because of what's happened and what the doctor may not have picked up. Maybe they are back home, maybe they only have one side that's operational or whatever, but they progress and get stronger, or sometimes it diminishes and it gets weaker. And if we're
Yeah.
not paying attention to it, again, to your point, a caretaker, someone else may take advantage of that to, manipulate the situation, which brings me to the last one that I think um, is probably one of the more sensitive ones for most people. Because when we hear this word hospice, when we hear hospice, we think last days, we think it's the
Mm-hmm.
end. And whether people go in with faith to believe they're going to get better, or whether they think they've thrown in a towel and this person is going to transpire uh, or transition, whatever. The stay in hospice, whether it's at home, which is probably the most vulnerable, because most hospice locations have chaplains and staff on board to kind
Mm-hmm.
of manage that care and treatment with the family. But if they're hospice at home, there's less eyes on this situation. So if you happen to have a situation where someone's in hospice out of the home, you want to be much closer and much more aware of what's transpiring with the caretaker, with the doctors, phone calls, all that's involved. And I will always tell people, just because it's hospice doesn't mean it's the end. That's just a level of treatment and a level of care. Doesn't mean that they're going to pass. A lot of people think that, they just think that way because they hear it, but it's a level of care that they're going to give that patient because of whatever the doctor had determined. But that's that stroke and a hospice situation is two other areas of medical significance that should be mentioned as well.
Cool. Thank you so much for that. Let's pick another number.
Really? Mm,
Keep going.
7, 7.
Number 7 says, what resources or support systems are available to elderly individuals with mental health issues who are experiencing or are at risk of abuse that you can think of, even if they're just in your local area?
Well, right now, where we are in most cities, I was working a case out of New York, and New York has a whole state advocacy program. They put together where there's somebody that manages how they're treated in rehabilitation centers and stuff like that. So there's an appeal, and most states do have that. If you go on their website and look at those opportunities, but locally, there, like I said, here in Vegas, there's a elderly abuse division with the police
Hmm.
metro. There's a number you can call 211 that will give you a series of resources for elderly individuals, whether it's housing, whether it's, whatever. So most things you can research online, but it's your due diligence to find it. And then when you make that first call, ask for other avenues of which, whatever the need may be. Or one of my friends, she does life. They created their own senior help book and was able to distribute it at a couple of churches, so and that was just a nonprofit loving way to give back to the community. So whether if there isn't one in your area, then you can create one. It's worth it. And you can work with some nonprofits that'll help you get that out, because I guarantee you, whether it's you or them or somebody, we're all going to be in that Oreo position where we take care of them,
At
or
some point.
we
Yeah,
at some point, definitely. So I hope that helped a little bit.
that's cool. And 211 is national, right? So you can use that
It's
across the
it's
country?
No, no, no. 211 is going to be a local number,
Or is
but
it
they
just
should have.
Nevada?
It
Okay.
should have it in every jurisdiction. Just like 911 is not going to be a national police, but it'll hone into that area. So you should be able to
Mm,
dial 211 or 411 for those kind of resources.
mm. Cool. Okay. Let's pick another number.
You know what? Mm, I'm going with 10.
Ooh, number 10. What strategies or interventions can be implemented to prevent or address elder abuse in individuals with mental health concerns?
Well, I think I'm going to offer the only strategy that I know because I'm working it here in this region and I'm really doing my best to um, get it around the country. And for me, the strategy is prevention, protection, and proof. Typically, in abuse, we want to prevent it. Prevention comes from education. So a lot of people get educated about preventing this abuse with their seniors. What we're doing today, your program, your podcast, is educating people. What does education do? It helps prevent it. And then the next strategy move is protection. What happens if they're being abused right now? What happens if the
Mhm.
nurse or the caretaker is slapping them in the head every time they come in? I don't know. I'm being funny. I know that wasn't funny. Please forgive me. But whatever's happening, how do we protect them? Do we call the police every time? For me, because I manage investigations and security, you might want somebody to come by when just to check on them if they're staying by themselves. Do a periodic set up a call to call them to ask them if they're okay. One of the saddest situations was that one I told you about the two sisters. The mother was scared to call the other daughter because she thought the other sister was going to yell at her and make her feel bad. So she never
Mm,
called to say she was being yelled at, that kind of thing. So yeah, the strategy we want to prevent, we want to protect, and then proof. This is where our company kind of shines. If there's reports of abuse, who do you tell? Most often than not, people don't document. So if you would call see
mhm,
investigation, call my company, then we would listen. We would document it for you. We put it in such a way that it would be conducive to a detective's report to get to the DA if it gets that far as a criminal case, and or to the insurance company who's looking for information to sustain allegations or other things like that. It has to be documented. So you need a professional, someone who can do that. And most attorneys and lawyers are going to charge you arm and a leg. But because our firm works in the legal capacity of offering that legal assistance, it uh, could be worth it to ensure that you document so you have proof. Unfortunately, all the time, the court is not going to be listening to he say, she say. You got to have something written, the times, dates, stuff like that. So you want to get with someone who can help those seri- help those situations get documented appropriately.
mm.
That so I don't know
And
if that
you
helps with the
said
strategy.
your first one was, what was the first one again?
Prevention.
Prevention, protection, and proof. I
Yes.
love those. I used to operate off of a similar strategy, or basically the same strategy, when I was running a nonprofit called Watch, which stands for Why Are the Children Hurting? And that was
Mhm.
to put a stamp against child abuse, as specifically child sexual abuse.
Uh,
And so it was the same concept. So
well,
yeah.
it was the same concept. Now you have a certified legal, and when I say that, I mean that when I go to court or produce these documents to any court case, I'm a certified expert. So is my company, and we're licensed throughout the country. So this becomes critical when you're really want to pursue something on that level. Even to the point where I work with another family, and their daughter now passed away, but received such poor treatment in the rehab center that they were known for, and she got some kind of what they call the urinary tract infection that
Mhm.
made her stomach bloat, and it was really, really bad.
Mm,
And so they wanted to pursue a lawsuit against this rehabilitation center. Well, again, it's back to he say, she say, he did that, the
mhm,
nurses say that. But because they were able to work with me and I was able to document and get the right information, that company was able to, settle and do what they needed to do to take care of this family. But again, but like to your point, it boils back down to, we couldn't prevent it. We weren't able to protect him and have him, but we did get enough proof to take it to the next level, so that family was able to get some closure and some answers.
That's good. Wow. Whew, this is a pretty deep topic when we're talking about, the elders and abuse, but it's so prevalent. I'm sure not just in this country, but it's definitely very prevalent in this country. So let's go on to another number.
All right. Number two.
Number two, how does mental health impact vulnerability to elder abuse?
All right. So you use the word mental health. The mental health to me is that it's total health. I think because of this tragic awareness now in our culture, mental health is used very regularly. But when it comes to elderly abuse and when it comes to seniors, um, because they deal with the already aging process, that I don't think everything that they deal with is necessarily mental health contributed. But
Mm-hmm.
like you and I, our mental health is affected by how we're treated, what we eat, how we take care of ourselves, our lifestyle. Everything affects our mental health. So when you're talking about a senior person who has um, grown in age, I work with I call her a young lady. She's 84 years old, but moves like she's 19.
Mm-hmm.
She's just an amazing lady. But again, is her mental health is sharp. She's sharp as a tack. But you would look at her and say she's old. So we want to give her, a tagline. That, oh well, we worry about her mental health. No, we're not worried about her mental health at all. But what it is about her, she's stuck in her ways. She ain't gonna change, and she wanted like it was the 1940s because that's what she knows. I'm just saying. So that means she's got mental health issues? No, that just means she's older than I am. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just being honest. Because I get people say that all the time because we work together. I actually sit on a board with her and I have to deal with her, but I understand what she used to and what she loves about her history. You see what I'm saying? So, and I don't mean, I mean, this may way off your question, but I just think sometimes I don't want to always tag the mental health to a person that's being abused, but I do want to balance it with a person that is just comfortable with who they are and what age they are. Um,
Yeah.
there's, there's a lady, I think she's 93, and her husband was a jazz musician, and she listens to the old jazz all the time. And it doesn't, and she's up in her age, she's getting older, but in that level of who she is, that jazz music gives her back the nostalgia and put her at a peace where she
Mm-hmm.
remembers. So I can't introduce her to no new rap and Beyonce when
She
she
might
only
like
knows
it. You never know.
she might, but she's definitely more comfortable with her area of knowledge. So don't confuse. I just don't want people to just grandma tripping. You think there's mental health.
Mm-mm.
Grandma just might just need you to act right. And like you said, maybe
Absolutely. And I
respect
think
her
that's
house.
important. I think that's important that you say that to make those determinations too, because sometimes we do kind of lump everything into the mental health category, whereas it doesn't necessarily need to be there. So that is a good distinction to make. For the purposes of this podcast, obviously, is geared toward mental health,
Yes, yes,
but definitely there are some distinctions and some lines that need to be drawn in the sand so that we don't cross them and just kind of throw everything over into that bucket. But with that being said, my next question is specific to mental health for sure. And that is, what role does depression play in elder abuse and how does it affect the overall quality of life for the victim?
discretion,
Depression.
depression.
Depression. Because a lot of
Well,
times elderly people do suffer from depression just in the sense of the fact that they're getting older and their cognitive abilities may not be what they used to be. Their body isn't what it used to be. And so they're starting to feel the
yes,
weight
definitely.
of the depression.
So I mentioned earlier my good friend LZ Martin who passed, and I know he dealt with some bouts of depression as a man. I mean, he wouldn't say it
Yeah.
out loud, and he didn't. Nobody
Yeah.
diagnosed him and said he was depressed. But there were times when I call him and what's going on? I'm just having one of them days. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that.
Hmm.
And I try to make him laugh. But depression does play a role in mental health, but it's one of those very subtle underlining conditions that really need a therapist to pull it out to identify it. So what it doesn't happen in our elderly and in our seniors, they don't get a chance to sit down with a therapist
Mm-hmm.
because one, a lot of them are very against it. They don't want to deal with it because they're old school,
Yeah.
or two, they can't afford it because it's not available on their insurance plan with Medicaid or
Mhm.
whatever. So they deal with depression. And Mr. Martin, bless his heart, he would I'll never forget. He said, "Man, I need you to go get me something." I said, "What you want?" He wanted some Christian brothers. He liked to drink every now and then. But I don't know if that was his way of dealing with depression. But to
Right.
that point, they've they've got to an age of coping, and maybe not even knowing that they are under depression. So does it play a role? Yes. But again, back to my original statement when we first started, it does. It will require family, friends, neighbors, church members, somebody to be involved in their
Mm-hmm.
health reports and their health visits, so that that can be brought up to the doctor. Or hey, they used to go out to the park every Sunday, but they don't want to go no more. They're just sitting on the
Yeah.
porch. They're not talking as much. Somebody paying attention to condition changes so that we can capture if it is depression and what level of depression it is, and is it treatable or is it just, they need some activity change. Depression can be treated in so many different ways.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of all the medication, but a lot of times, back to that original thing I said on that third question, it's about love. Sometimes depression can just be wiped away with somebody caring enough about them to get them out of the house. One of the businesses I hope to successful sooner than later is provide that outing for that senior. I mean, we always got people to come to the house and watch them, but how often do we get them out of the house to go bowling or go to the mall and walk around and see things? Get them out of that environment that might be adding to the depression. They
Mm-hmm.
wake up every day, they do the same thing, and it's routine, and they never go anywhere. Some of them may go to church, but that's it. That's the only outing they get. So nobody's going to come pick them up. Nobody's going to spend time with them. So wouldn't it be great to have my service share that with your elderly senior person, and then you just to pay for a couple of dollars, and you got about 4 hours of a break, and then you and your husband can go out to a party, you can go eat. I'm just saying. That's a plug, shameless plug, shameless,
It's
shameless.
all right. No, that's actually a good idea. I was sitting here as you were saying that, thinking about recently I had the grand opportunity to help a Facebook friend actually, and she was actually out of town and she was looking for somebody to go pick up her elderly dad and take him to a doctor's appointment that couldn't be changed, and so I volunteered to do that for her. I shouldn't say volunteer because she did pay me a little bit to do it, but I still did it because I wanted to do it. And it was just like, seeing his, even though he didn't even really know me, we kind of got to know each other during that time that we spent together. And it was so incredible just to watch, his face and him being out and just, I took him, we went and got some food afterward, and it was just kind of like, you could tell that he felt good, and just having
Right,
that time. And so I think that's incredible to be able to offer that service because definitely depression affects quality of life. I know how depression affects quality of life for the younger people, for people my age, for middle aged people. So definitely I can only imagine, how much worse it affects the quality of life for our seniors. So
right. And to that point, I see if and you, if you're interested, again, we're not. The LLC has been formed, but I am open to anybody who's interested. I could use all this, no matter what city you're in. We can talk about it. But I think it's a service that here in Vegas, they have a paratransit service that really works well in the city to get elderly to and from different appointments and stuff like that. But I'm talking about a self-care day. You know what I mean? Where maybe that gentleman that you took to the appointment, maybe he wants to go sit in the pool hall and shoot some pool or whatever. I mean, it doesn't matter what they want to do, but offering something different, even if
yeah,
you just took him to the lake and watch the ducks, it's still a couple of hours out of that environment that they
yeah,
may be at home or even in a senior center. I,
yes,
I, I don't see it being offered, and that's why I thought it was a great business model. But again, just in the beginning stages of putting it together, it becomes something very needful and appreciated. And if people like me, because I've done it for my mom, and I know this is where the brainchild came from. The ladies at her church, they were going. I want to say they were going on a cruise, and so my mom's, she's cool, but she couldn't afford it, but she was going to be with women at church that knew her and everything. So I made sure she had a walker, all the things she needed to be able to be mobile. But I paid for everything. I paid for her to be picked up, taken, driven, to the port, all that good stuff, because I wanted her to have her day. Now that was from me, not her.
Mhm.
Does that happen every weekend? No. Did she deserve it? Yes. And if you're of that age and you have parents or grandparents that could use that kind of a day, I took one of her friends. They just wanted to go to. I don't know where they do it at here, but I know around the country people who try to go to the mall and walk. I don't know what that's
Mhm.
about. They just walk
Mhm.
around the mall. I know in Vegas it'd be 190, 100 degrees, so don't nobody want to walk outside. So
We do it in the malls though.
well, yeah, but if you just took them, they got a chance to walk around their walker where they're
Walk
not in
and
the
talk.
streets.
That's all they
Yeah.
want to do. Yeah.
So the services that I'm thinking of is providing transportation, a licensed CNA or someone else who can, monitor them for a couple of hours and just get them back home. And I think that would be worth it. Again, to speak to the depression, speak to the self care and how they're treated. So, yeah, if you're interested, get at me. Souraya know how to get with me. Yeah.
We'll give you time at the end to give them some information. I do want to ask this question because I think it's very, very important. What are some common signs of mental health issues among elderly individuals experiencing abuse? So, like, more so, I guess, what should people look for? So, like, if an elderly person is being abused in some way, but maybe they're fearful of saying something, kind of just like a child, when they're being abused and they're fearful of saying something, what are some of the signs that you know of that people can look for, their care, other caregivers or family members can look for, and they can just address these issues or at least ask the right questions?
Well, there's going to be. I got to look at it from two sides. One, if you're going in looking for something,
You're probably gonna find it.
well, you got to do it from two perspectives. You have to talk to the caregiver, and you have to talk to your loved one, because you need to see if that interaction lines up. Because if one is saying something the other one is not saying, then you have some more diving to do.
Hmm.
Because if the grandparents say, "Oh, we're doing a great job and everything, I love her," and then the caregiver say, "She always cuts me out every time I come in," and then we got a problem. So we need to figure that out, not together in the same room, but try to do some more digging into that relationship. Again, when you're dealing with outside resources that are interacting with the loved one and there are potential signs for abuse, one of the things that you want to, again, you can't just come in and, well, Grandma, I got a podcast and I want to see if you're okay. Well, you're gonna have to develop that kind of rapport so that that grandparent or that parent that you ain't talked to in 6 months starts building that with you, because you're not going to get all of it just by asking a question. Sometimes it's watching behavior, watching inconsistencies. If she's stopped eating a full plate of food, or they're more sleepier than before. These things happen with ongoing interaction, not just stop by, 10 minutes out of the week. So you're going to have to build a rapport relationship so you can pay attention to subtle changes that will raise a red flag in you. If it raises a red flag in you and how they're being treated or how they're behaving, then it's definitely a cause for a deeper dive, a little bit more questioning, and not accusatively. You always want to do it in love and care, and because you don't want anybody to feel like you're accusing them or they're doing this or that other. Because believe it or not, I know we're talking about mental abuse and all that mental health. Some of these seniors can be a rough way to go too, because
Oh,
they
yes, they
they
can.
they they put up some drama as
Oh,
well.
yes.
But it hinges on that professional, hinges on that love and how we deal with it and how we field it, so that we're still able to take care of them and not blame them for the subtle changes that may be happening to them because of physical or health issues or mental health developments. Forgetting. is again, a memory is really a big one, and I know one of the I think that is the probably the saddest event that you can experience. I say sad because for someone to live such a full life and had
Yeah,
rich successes and then don't remember who you
yeah,
are. It's just sad.
that's really sad.
And so here you are, wanting to love on them, but they don't remember who you are. It's its own depression for the caregiver as well.
Yeah,
and
yep.
and 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 so to your point earlier, sometimes there's that need for self-care for those who are caring for
Hmm.
this elderly generation. So my answer is, build a rapport, pay attention, and then if it raises a red flag with you, write it down and revisit it the best way you can, or call me and I'll help you develop a strategy on how to get to the crux of the matter.
That's awesome. So I just really want to ask you two more questions.
Uh-oh.
How can, or is there a way that mental health professionals can collaborate with investigators to provide better outcomes for elderly abuse victims?
Well, let's really deal with the elephant in the room. I probably am the only investigator in the country who has a passion for old people. It is private investigators anyway. They're doing cheaters and some other things that we do in the profession. And I'm not saying I'm the only one. I just haven't heard about anybody else. But like I said, in Vegas, there is a division of detectives that deal with it directly. And if you find in your state or in your area that there is a contingency of a department, maybe like here, we got a senior citizen center. So they
Hmm.
come out and they have activities. Well, maybe the director here, Byron Goings, if there's something going on, maybe he becomes an advocate. Maybe he may not be an investigator, but he knows what's going on with that person, and he can bring in an investigator to help get to the bottom of that. Most of the time, people don't find me because I don't exist everywhere, but they find an attorney,
Interesting.
and the attorney becomes that investigator when a family is super concerned, and they're only concerned because they're looking at the funding or the financial, gain that most attorneys look for. Um, but when I found in communities that love our seniors, the investigation doesn't have to be someone like me. I'm a certified legal investigator. But it can be your pastor, it can be your deacon, it can be your imam, it could be your rabbi who will look into matters on behalf of that senior person. So that becomes the investigator, Soraya. It doesn't always have to be a titled investigator with a
Actual
legal.
investigator.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So with that being said, these are people who we develop rapport with and who know how to ask the right questions, and also has resources that can be beneficial to assisting with that uh, potential alleged abuse situation.
All right.
That it, does
Awesome.
that help?
Yes, thank you. And finally, when there is a situation that arises and an investigation has to be opened into a potential case of elder abuse, how do you ensure or how can you ensure the protection and safety of the potential victim during the process? Because maybe it's a family member that is being investigated. How do you ensure, and obviously, I mean, I'm assuming, I don't really know because I'm not in that world, that there is some level of knowledge that this investigation is happening. Maybe I don't know what that looks like.
So
Um,
so
but how do you
let's use the more common abuse that happens in our country that gets talked about way more, and that's domestic violence. Domestic
Mhm.
violence abuse when a woman is being abused by their significant other, whatever. So there's laws and a bunch of bills passed to make try to help her be safer. So we take those same principles and we do the same thing with the elderly.
Mhm.
That's why Metro here adopted that abuse division because all
Gotcha.
we do is report it to them, and now the same thing. Is there a temporary restraining order available? Does that person need to be around them? Do they have a POA? All those things get investigated because now someone had to report it. Now that elderly person who's scared to report it, just like the female who's
Mm-hmm.
scared to report her husband. I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to tell on him because he's paying all the bills. I don't want to tell on him because he just hit me once. And
Mm-hmm.
they just let it go. So, in that same conversation, how do we? Well, someone that has that conversation where they can trust them. And if you've been abused or a woman has been abused, it takes a little while for her to feel strong enough to make that report to the authorities. And that's what's going to have to happen with the elderly. Typically, there's a better way because with the elderly it's more health wise and because they're senior, so getting to a nurse or getting to a doctor because they're under oath to report those reported if efforts. So if um, my mother said, hey, nurse, you came to see about me but my son isn't doing right, every time I come home he kicks me in my leg, then she's got to report that. That nurse
Mm-hmm.
has a
Yeah.
responsibility. So I would suggest or encourage to report those matters to health professionals to be the first step, and then they would know which route to go from there for our elderly. And if they don't do that, then a trusted family member or friend to get someone to take that report, whether it's a police report or someone at the center to tell that was going on, because they're going to move it along. But there has to be somebody has to write it down, document it, and again, I think the health professionals is probably the best first steps when it comes to our elderly.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for all of the knowledge and wisdom that you have provided to this platform today. This was incredible. Definitely something that somebody can use moving forward. So, with that being said, I truly appreciate you for coming on today. Please tell our audience how they can reach you, how they can work with you should they need your services.
Okay. Well, we are rebranding, so I have a website. It's called CSEE Investigation .net. That's it. Investigation.net. If you go there, you can always fill in your information, ask questions. The website is designed to get that information to me directly. The phone number, how to reach me, is there as well. And I am on YouTube and again, continually to build. So on the website, and I think um, I have my team kind of creating the brand and reaching out a little bit more. But I will be hosting a senior gathering before the end of the year. Last year I did it in one of the local settings here, and I had the likes of AARP, Senior Citizen, that was here in Vegas. But this time I'm hoping to do it on Zoom so that I can get people like yourself, you guys to come in and see what we're doing and maybe partner and see what we can do in your area because it's not going anywhere. I'm gonna get older, you're gonna get older, and
Right.
we want some young people like her. She's younger than me. Not just teasing. We want some young people to care a lot about us enough to be concerned about these issues and make sure that we grow older with grace and we're able to
Mhm.
leave the legacy that um, our elders have left for us, and we want to honor that. So yeah, get to my website, and my email address is jhe.global007 at gmail.com.
One
And
more time.
yes, JHE, John Henry Edward, dot global 007 at gmail.com.
All right.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you again for being
All right.
on today.
Can I
Truly appreciate you. Yep, go
can I do
ahead.
this? Can I do this for your listeners?
Go ahead.
Hey, this is off the chain, y'all. This is Souraya. I mean, I'm blessed. Hey, so I don't know what y'all do with y'all time, but share this podcast. This is one of the few podcasts that you can share with everybody. I don't care if you're a grandchild, if you're a grandmother, if you're an Oreo like us, you should share this information because we only got right now. My mom is the only patriarch left. Every other grandparent is gone on to glory. So
Yeah.
maybe you're doing that. Let's honor them by making sure they're safe, and we share this with other people who are taking care of their parents as well. All right. So, Ryan, thank you for hosting this
Absolutely.
platform, and great job. We love it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. Goodbye, y'all. See y'all in a couple weeks. We'll do it again.